Rebecca Rusch grew up never knowing her father, but all of that changed when the 3-time Leadville 100 winner took her mountain bike to Vietnam in search of his remains. He was a military pilot in the 70s, shot down and missing for decades in a remote part of the country. Rebecca's search for her father is at the heart of Blood Road, a new documentary from Red Bull that chronicles her ride on the mysterious Ho Chi Minh Trail with Nguyen Nguyen, a Vietnamese professional cyclist. Rebecca talks to Krystal 93 about the experience, how it changed her perception of an entire country, and how it unearthed skeletons, not to mention unexploded bombs, from the Vietnam War.
I know it's about a bike ride, not a race. How does your approach to biking change, when you're just out there for yourself?
That's a really good question. So, this was definitely a big expedition ride. We were on the trail almost a month, mapping it and the logistics of figuring out a route from a trail that was, purposely secretive. That was a big logistical challenge, just trying to plan it all out.
Yeah.
And then, bringing a film crew along, and, they were on motorcycles the whole time, really going through a jungle expedition, same as I was. And
yeah.
So what changed? I mean, as an athlete, I'm usually in control of my situation and going as fast as I can, or, I'm capable and, from point A to point B. And so, the biggest difference with this is that I didn't have the control that I'm used to. And by control,
yeah.
I didn't mind being lost or not knowing where we were going all the time, but I definitely wasn't, it was a much bigger team that I'm used to working with, and,
almost not in control of the pace.
The pace, the logistics of charging and waiting for film crew, of, riding with a teammate that was a stranger at the beginning of the ride, and, who was, not as experienced as I am in ultra distance biking. So there were a lot of factors, and then, border crossings from, Vietnam to Laos, and bridges that are gone that, were there the week before. So there were quite a few things, including filming, that really had to make everybody be a lot more flexible and fluid than I normally would be as this type A professional athlete,
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to cover this many miles a day, and this is where we're stopping, and, it might take a little longer if there's a bridge gone, but, I was just in a lot less control than I'm used to having. And it was a really big lesson for me, partway through the trip, when I finally relinquished that and realized we were all working towards the same goal. I think we started moving better as a team about halfway through the trip.
Great. Well, and that was kind of the next question I had for you. Any moments when you second-guessed the mission? When you were thinking maybe we bit off more than we could chew, or maybe this just was not the right,
I didn't second guess the mission. There were definitely times, though, where I felt like it wasn't my trip or my expedition anymore, and that I was, along for the ride in somebody else's trip. And there were moments of frustration of what are we doing here? My goal is to ride this trail and get to this tree. And, my goal wasn't set out to make a film documentary, although that was part of the deal. It was Red Bull helped me with it. They wanted to film it because it's such a great story. And there were definitely times in the middle I was like, man, I don't, how is this story going to turn out? And it's that much harder to have a film crew. Looking backwards in hindsight, if we hadn't filmed this amazing story, what's been something really special for me is the ride is done, and it was my personal experience, but having it documented and being able to show it to other people has really expanded the meaning of the trip far beyond just me. And it's allowing a lot of people to heal and hear about an issue like unexploded ordnance that they didn't know about, and to talk about the Vietnam for the first time. I mean, we were meeting many vets who haven't talked about it, and they're starting to now, and school kids who are like, wow, I'm learning this. I'm learning something I never knew. And so looking back, for sure, it wasn't a mistake to do the documentary, because it expands the power of the story that much more than just a personal story for me. But there were definitely times in the trail I was like, man, fucking film crews and like, come on, you guys. Like, we said we were going to leave at 7 a.m. and it's 12 o'clock noon. Like, what are we doing here? You know, and those frustrations happened, but it was so worth it in the end. And I mean, I know that it was hard for the film crew to be patient with me and Hugh-en and, you know, my bike mechanic and my husband, and because I was so passionately focused on my goal and really, you know, had blinders on for some of it. But like I said, when we sort of started to gel as a team, and everybody was really moved by the trip, and that started happening, you know, partway through, and we all started becoming friends and teammates instead of, you know, clashing.
Okay.
Working together instead of, you know, trying to, and the film crew too, you know, we both sides had to give, you know, they couldn't stop and have me redo scenes and, you know, go, because we had to cover 1,200 miles, and there were scenes in the film that are one-shot deal. Like, you can't meet a villager for for the first time, a second time. And so they really had to push themselves to change their tactics as well. And so everybody was compromising, and not compromising, but everybody was having to change what they were used to and the way they're used to doing their job.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and I was going to ask,
but
you know,
it comes across though as such an amazing story, and you can look back now and go, yeah, that was super hard, but man, it's so worth it.
But yeah, one of those moments, when it was like, if only there was a behind the scenes documentary showing how it all came together too. Well, and unfortunately, you know, I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but I was curious, you know, a little bit more about this story and, you know, kind of the spark behind this trip. Like you said, you wanted it to be for you. It was something that you had kind of set out in your mind. What sticks out to you, you know, about from the moment you set the goal to the moment that you completed it?
I mean, it was a life-changing trip, and I know that sounds really cliche, but I feel like there's so much depth to the story and so many things that have happened to me and my family, and getting to know my father and my evolution as an athlete and doing more expedition riding. I mean, it really was life-changing, and I feel almost like it's been my dad's gift to me, you know, an inheritance of you know, what it all means and what I've been doing all this endurance athletics for. I do feel like kind of always leading me there, and then coming home with the awareness of the unexploded ordnance and the bombs really gave me a new mission for my cycling and a reason to, you know, to be able to use my bike to create change and use this film to raise awareness for an issue. And so it's great. And I guess the biggest surprising is like how many gifts this one ride, you know, is personally and culturally and globally. I mean, so many, and as career-wise, like it's just a lot of gifts have come from the trip. and
far into the future, it sounds like too. So not, you know, not just a month worth of riding your bike, but kind of like you said, kind of give you a goal, a mission into the future.
Absolutely, yeah. It's opened my eyes. It's been great.